Warning, listening to Unleash Your Genius can be good for your health.
Symptoms may include looking and feeling better,
More energy, healthier kids, and increased productivity.
Unleash Your Genius podcast brings you the science, art, and philosophy of health, wellness,
Epigenetics, and lifestyle.
Hey, Jim. Welcome to the Unleash Your Genius podcast.
Thank you, Brian. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about today. Hey, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, my company is Neuro-Fit Systems, but actually I was a chiropractor for 18 years. I won't tell you how old I am, but I practiced for a long time and came out of practice in the year 2000, and that's when I started just working with different individuals and ended up figuring out what we figure out as far as paving neural pathways.
Cool. So how did you come up with this?
Well, the whole concept, yeah, right. Well, being a chiropractor, I was fortunate out in the United States. I was able to do a lot of different things within chiropractic. And my wife and I have 5 children, and I practiced for a long time. And I just felt like there was a little bit more to understanding neurology and different kind of concepts of how our bodies work and how the brain works with our bodies. So I decided to write a book back in 2000, and it was basically a dissertation on how our framework carries energy and what our facial symmetry does, and how that energy can affects how we converse and how we interact within our environments. And I ventured out of chiropractic and started working with clients, venture capitalists and CEOs, and helping them convey a little bit more efficient energy, if you would, for lack of a better term. And I ran across this thing called addiction and compulsive disorders, and I knew nothing about that. So I went back to school and I got certified as an addiction professional. And as I was going through that process, you learn a lot about the midbrain and the subcortex and the brainstem and the limbic system. And as I was sitting back looking at all these theories and concepts, it struck me that if the physiological model of growth and development is true, you change physiology through movement. And that's proven in athletic models. You can get bigger, faster, stronger by putting a different load on your body. And your brain says, oh, I need longer, more streamlined fiber or fat or denser fiber to do the work. So I looked at that subcortical structure and that relationship between the brainstem, which is fight, flight, freeze, the midbrain that calms things down, the pons that takes in auditory signals, and then the limbic system, that's our mood and emotional regulator. That's all an interworking of physiology and chemical communication. So I said, oh man, I wonder if you can put a load on the body to change that relationship so it balances itself out. And I started reverse engineering the neurology from the subcortex out to the framework. And I found that you could do that. And I had a huge advisory panel, a bunch of my colleagues, psychiatrists, and neurologists, and chiropractors, and naturopathic doctors, and Reiki practitioners, all kinds of different folks that were helping me poke holes in my theory. And we ended up with a theory, and I ran with it and started in the world of addiction and helping people with, their subcortical drives and addictions and things of that nature. And one of my clients had a youngster on the spectrum. And back in 15 years ago, it was a whole different ballgame. So I said, yeah, we can help. I'm sure we can somehow. So kind of reverse engineered the program again for kids. And that's where we're at today. I mean, it took off, and we're paving some great pathways. We have a double-blind control study that we just finished with UCLA, and that'll be published at the end of this year, 2016. And then we just started a new one with the University of Southern California and Children's Hospital Los Angeles, doing biomarkers on oxidative stress and those kind of things. So that's how it all started. It was, I just was the right place at the right time, thinking about the right things, I guess.
Right. And when was this? When did this start? Oh
my gosh, 2000 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, doing it for a while.
Okay. So, right. So it started out, you were working with adults and addictions, and now what would you say your focus is with Neuro-Fit?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of interesting. You know, I always tongue in cheek say, you know, we work with people from the womb to the tomb, right? I mean, so, because if you have a brain and a nervous system, there's always open for potential, and there's always capacity for growth and development. But most of our work has been for kids on the spectrum, hyperactivity, ADD. Learning challenges, those kind of things. That's where really our power band is. But we do see adults with ataxia, such as Parkinson's and things of that nature, anxiety, PTSD, those kind of things, where that subcortical neurology is kind of overloaded and the networks change and they stay that way. So we can kind of repave them.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of oftentimes we assume that the neurology is just the neurology. It's stuck the way it is. But from what I'm getting, it's more like a muscle that you can work and change. And I'm curious about you mentioned Parkinson's. Can you tell us about that and how you would work with someone with Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? So ataxia, you know, when we look at folks, right, when we look at kids, whether kids or adults, and you're talking about, there's a term I use, it's called neuroefficiency, right? And so we're looking like for neural organization and to promote efficiency. And there's when neurology kind of becomes inefficient, if you would, at the subcortical level. So you have that subcortical level that's in charge of our fight, flight, freeze chemistry, and it's also part of our rest and digest system, right? That's the part of that sympathetic nervous system. And the cortical function, you know, that's our thinking brain, that's our executive function piece. So when you look at Parkinson's, or we look at whether even kids on the spectrum, we know the neurology is kind of out of sync when there's 3 types of inefficiencies that present themselves. So you'll see what we call neuromotor. So for a child on the spectrum, it might be flapping or stemming, they call that, or the inability to sit still. For an adult with ataxia, such as Parkinson's, it's tremors. And the neuromotor system's overloaded. And whenever there's a cognitive process where these, folks have to think hard about something, the tremors will increase and then they'll decrease, and then there's a processing overload. So what we do with our Parkinson's clients is that we put them through the protocol to, we kind of start back to basics. We get on the ground, and there's certain stretches that we ask them to do and experience, and then on all fours, and then transition to upright on unstable platforms, and just get that nerve system kind of activated again. Yeah.
So, right. So it so the nerve pathways can, for lack of a better word, find the muscles easier or more coordinated, like more quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting concept in that, I was talking with someone today, and they talk about, the mind-body connection, right? And really, that's when you try to, there's great mind-body approaches with meditation and yoga and things of that nature. We're really talking about a brain-body approach, in that the stage-related sequences that we go through as infants in development are actually activating neural pathways through the subcortex. And we use the body as a tool to activate the brain and help it to grow and mature and develop. And that's exactly what can happen again when you go back through that process. So that's exactly what we do with our ataxia clients, or Parkinson's and dementia and those kind of things.
So what should parents look out for? Is there some early signs that they may require some of your skill set? Is there something that parents can look out for?
Yeah, what they call eye teaming tracking, is really an important kind of process. The scanning of the eyes and the horizon, and the scanning of the eyes and how kids look at and follow their parents' faces. Equilibrium, clumsiness, those are kind of things. The neurodevelopment is stage related, it's evolutionary, and it needs to be experienced, meaning that if there's one stage of development that isn't met with efficiency, it'll affect the next stage of development. And the signs are very subtle. Crawling, the inability to crawl is a sign that the hierarchy isn't being achieved with efficiency. The dragging of a leg, a little baby crawling and drags a leg, those kind of things. What they call proprioceptive seekers, kids that are bumping the wall, or they bump into corners, they have to lean on you when they get, those kind of things. Those are all indicators that, there's nothing broken, so there's nothing really to fix. It's just a matter of calibration and efficiency. So those are kind of indicators that the system's working a little bit overtime.
Okay. So Jim, let's say that my kid, they're not as coordinated as they should be. Just getting that, parents have that feeling that something isn't right. So if they were to take, let's say they take your kid to the Neuro-Fit in Brisbane or in LA, what would it look like for like the parents and the kids, their first couple of visits? What kind of experience would they go through?
Gotcha. Okay. So our protocol is based on engagement, which means we play. Again, the layer of neurology, if you would, that we're asking to activate is the same concept of a child in development. Engaging, create a relationship. They would get on the ground and we do certain stretches, actually emulate what happened in utero through stretches and rolling and tumbling, and then getting on all fours and crawling up and down different obstacles. And then we use very unconventional things like tractor tires, and we'll put kids in tractor tires to take away their visual acuity, so they have to feel the momentum of crawling, and they have to experience what that's like on all fours and moving a big old tire. So those kind of things, whenever you are able to play through the stages of development, it's very engaging and it's fun, and that's what we do. It's very different than a skill set kind of training where, okay, give me 5 of these, give me 10 of these, or turn your hand this way, right? It's, neurodevelopment is an experience process. So that's what they've experienced, and they've, it's about having fun, engaging, and doing the experience of developmental sequences.
That's what I was going to say. It kind of sounds like the kids would be having fun there at the
yeah.
center.
Yeah, it should. That's a pivotal ingredient for their success, right? Because if they can have fun, they engage, and once they start engaging, results take off like compounding interest on a credit card, and that's what neurology should be at that developmental level.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Jim, what about, let's say I have a daughter who wants to get better at sports or basketball. Is that something that you would focus on as well? Is that an area that you can improve on?
Yeah. When we talk about promoting efficiency, right? A lot of the kids that we see in adults, they come in, for lack of a better term, they're just overwhelmed, overloaded, and their nerve systems are kind of fatigued. And we see it physically, we see it in processing machinery, the ability to process them. We see it in some of the cognitive outcome capacities. Kids and adults, we work with professional athletes. We have a few teams out in the U.S. here that we have, we kind of work with just on basic efficiency. We have a lot of college students that come to see us for focus, concentration, those kind of things. So it's kind of like cardiovascular training, right? I mean, you can always benefit from a walk or a jog in moving your blood flow and getting your lymphatics to move and those kind of things. The type of work that we do is the same. We're talking about improving the ability for your brain and your body to receive input signals from the world around you, and improve that organization and how that information is the outcome of that information. So athletes come and see us, and it's a fun thing.
Yeah. So there's a Neuro-Fit here in Brisbane, Australia, and there's one in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
And
yes. We have.
Yep. Go on.
Yep,
is there more?
Yeah, you know what? We're on the expansion of our system right now. So yeah, we're opening another. We have one facility in LA. We're opening up another one close by in a little town called Pasadena, California, out here. We have our facility out in Brisbane. We're looking to expand into Melbourne and Adelaide by the beginning of 2017.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Jim, for right now, let's say there's a parent that is just too far away. They can't get to you, and they see that there's something off. Do you have any tips or anything that they could just do at home to get them started until they could get more professional help?
Yes, I think one of the things that is parents have that intuition, right? They know that something might not be firing with efficiency, and there's I'm a pretty natural and organic guy, and I believe that good old-fashioned play and roughhousing and rolling and tumbling is really the foundation of development, because you're really talking, if you look at your body as a tool, right, and you look at children in development, they slip, they fall, they roll, they tumble, they do all those kind of things. So if a parent is suspecting something might be off a little bit, I say the best approach is to get down on the ground, get a little physical, get rough and tumbly, roll down a hill, go outside to a park, allow the environment to kind of engage with them. And I know a lot of times kids with sensory processing challenges get overwhelmed by different environments. That's, again, get close to your child, give them the input so that they know they're safe, and just work through it. That's really, after all the years that I've seen, there's no magic bullet to any of this. It's just helping your kids through the experience. So, that would be my best advice. And you could always email me or call our facility in Brisbane, because we'll talk all the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about the elderly? Reducing the risk of falls, I think, is really important. They would go through a similar type thing if they were to go to a Neuro-Fit clinic. You have a protocol for that as well? Yes,
we do, and it's kind of interesting. We look at some of the senior concerns. If you look at some of the senior concerns, you can see the same concerns revisiting for when children are growing up, right? It's kind of interesting that we're kind of fighting gravity on the way up, and there's all kinds of different equilibrium, maturity, efficiencies, and things of that nature. And then as we get a little bit older, we're fighting gravity pushing down on us, right? So when frameworks of senior citizens start to shift and their equilibrium begins to change and becomes a little bit more challenging, you see some of the overload and the same things that you do with kids that are working inefficiently on the way up. So yes, we have definitely a vertigo protocol. We have, like I said, our Parkinson's pieces that we do, and dementia and short-term memory, all those kind of things. And obviously they're a little bit different programs, but they're all along the same philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Jim, is there a question that I should have asked you that I haven't yet?
How does chiropractic fit in?
Boom. Yes.
How's that?
Beautiful. We didn't even practice that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So chiropractic's awesome, right? Look, we're talking about what I do, is we use the body as a tool for movement. We use movement as the activator of neural pathways, which is, it's amazing what it does. Chiropractic in itself is an amazing tool in releasing the physical restriction of the flow of that neurology. right?
Right.
So hand in hand, they go together beautifully, and I think that's a really important um, point to make. That whenever you can reduce restriction, right? Um, Man, you just open up those gate valves and let that energy flow, and you see miracles happen.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think we've probably read the same quote. Movement of the spine is like a windmill to the brain. Have you heard?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
the movement of the movement of the spinal joints sends information to the brain. The brain, and that I think that's called proprioception, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
So firing any joint in our body sends this information to the brain, and the brain really likes that. Would you call it like a nutrient to the brain, or how is it that movement is?
It's like, yeah, I mean, if you think about, what that every cell, every fiber, every cell that we have has a connection to a neurofiber, right? So when you talk about joints and joint pressures, yeah, it's like light switches going off. It's like, hey, here I am. You remember me, right? And sometimes when joints get restricted and they get locked down, it's not that they're not felt, but there's a restriction of flow, right? And adjustments. I mean, they open that up. They just open that up, and that is pivotal to the ability to receive signals from the world around you, right? So the more efficiency you have in your nerve system through removing restrictions and using your body in movement, the better you can receive signals and the better they can be processed, the more efficient they can be processed. And that's just called efficiency. I mean, that's just what it is. Yeah.
Great. Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
do you have any resources that our listeners could go to learn more?
Well, yes, our website's a great resource. I mean, we have, that's www.neuro-fit.com. That's neuro-fit.com. We have a lot of good stuff on there. We're building a blog, and I'll have my blog done here in a couple months, and with all that amazing information. As far as go to your chiropractor and talk about subluxations and releasing physical restrictions. That there's always great resources there.
Hey, Jim, I just want to ask a few more questions before we go. Is that all right? Hey, I like to get to know. I want to get to know you a little bit more, and so a couple of quick questions. What's your favorite book?
Oh my gosh, what's my favorite book? The current one I'm really reading right now is kind of an interesting one. It's called The Unbeatable Mind by Mark Divine. It's an interesting book. It's on mental toughness and those kind of things. Boy, that's what I'd have to say. Right now, that's my favorite book.
Cool. Hey, what's like the best advice that you've ever received?
That I ever received?
Yeah.
There's two types of people in the world, right?
Yeah.
Ones that are given a challenge and dig in, and the other type are the ones that don't dig in because they can't see the challenge.
Nice. Hey, Jim, any last thoughts or words of advice?
Yes, there are. There's this mantra that we talk about at our office, and we work with our children all the time. And there's nothing broken, so there's nothing to fix. Expect change and assume possibility.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that, Jim.
No problem.
Hey, what? It's been awesome. It's been fantastic having you on the show today, Jim. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate having me.
Hey, I'll have links to all of your stuff on our website, unleashyourgenius.com, when it comes out. So have a look out for that. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much for listening to Unleash Your Genius with your host, Dr. Brian Peterson. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit unleashyourgenius.com. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, what's up? I hope you guys liked this episode. And if you did, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. And most importantly, give us a review and give us a 5-star rating too, please. All right. See ya. Oh, wait, and don't forget www.unleashyourgenius.com. Come check us out.